Shalom and greetings, brothers and sisters in Yeshua HaMashiach. It's Nick Vanderlaan here. Today is the 9th day of the 7th month, which means that Yom Kippur fast will start in the evening at sunset. It's September 27th, 2018. This message is being broadcasted from Jerusalem, Israel. The video is titled Wedding vs. Wedding Supper, Two Departures, ? So yesterday, as I was preparing a Yom Kippur video, I came across something new to me. I believe I found multiple departures and gatherings, one departure at the beginning of the 70th week, and one departure, I believe, at the midpoint. One gathering at the midpoint, and possibly one at the end. I've heard several people mention multiple departures, but I've never really looked into it, and I don't think anything was firmly proven when I heard these things. First, before we start, I think we need to make a distinction between departures and gatherings. A departure is going to heaven, and a gathering is those remaining on earth being gathered together. As I've been searching for that day, I've come across too many clues, hints, scriptures pointing to future events that possibly look like a Yom Kippur and Passover and Yom Kippur again. If not Yom Kippur, possibly a Sukkot, and I'll show you how the calendar and this timeline would just slide 4 days. These festivals, Yom Kippur and Passover, happen at opposite times of the year. Passover is in the 1st month, and Yom Kippur is in the 7th month. Sukkot's also in the 7th month. So there's no way that these events can be the same event, which means that there are multiple events. The wedding and the wedding supper seem to me to both be departures and appear to be separate events, one being at the beginning of the 70th week and one being at the midpoint of the 70th week, which I will try to prove in this video with just a little bit of scripture here, because it's really concealed. There's not a lot written about this, I don't believe, but I just trying to get this video out. The gathering of the 144,000 into the wilderness, and the final gathering of the Gentiles who have survived the finals, both being gatherings here on earth. I think making the distinction between departures and gatherings is important, and identifying that there are multiple will stop maybe all of the back and forth we've had debating this for decades, centuries, and millennia among the body. So here in Revelation 19, it talks about the marriage and the marriage supper together, and you can read it, verses 6 through 10. And I heard, as it were, the voice of a great multitude, as the voice of many waters, and as the voice of mighty thundering, saying, Alleluia! For Yahweh Elohim omnipotent reigneth. Let us be glad and rejoice and give honor to him. For the marriage of the Lamb is come, and his wife hath made herself ready. And to her was granted that she be arrayed in fine linen, clean and white. For the fine linen is the righteousness of the saints. And he saith unto me, Right, blessed are they which are called unto the marriage supper of the Lamb. So what I see here is the marriage and the marriage supper being grouped together as if. And I have as if they are the same event. But if we pay close attention to Yeshua's words in Luke 12:36, there appears to be two different events. And here's the verse right here, Luke 12:36. And ye yourselves, like unto men that wait for their master, when he will return from the wedding. Return from the wedding. We'll look at this whole passage in Luke, but return from means that it is past tense. The wedding already happened. So we'll take a look at Luke 12 right now. Here's most of this entire passage, Luke 12:35 to 40. The pink is my commentary. Let your loins be girded about and your lights burning. This happens at Passover. You're supposed to eat Passover with your loins girded. All right, lights burning. You eat it at nighttime. Okay, after evening in the night. And ye yourselves like unto men that wait for their master, when he will return from the wedding. So this is talking to a second group of people, I believe. The wedding has happened, and he's returning from the wedding when? On a Passover. The wedding consummation already happened, that when he cometh and knocketh, they may open unto him immediately. Blessed are those servants whom the master, when he cometh, shall find watching. Watching happens during Passover, as it is a night of watching. If you read Exodus 12:42, it says it's going to be a night of watching for all generations. Verily I say unto you, that he shall gird himself and make them to sit down to meat. to meet, to eat, to eat. When do you eat? At the supper. Okay, the marriage supper happens after the marriage, which appears to be mid-70th week, and will come forth and serve them. So they get to come to the wedding supper, but they're not a part of the wedding. And if he shall come in the second watch, maybe that's the second departure, which is mid-70th week, question mark, or come in the third watch, third departure, the end of the 70th week, and find them so, blessed are those servants. And this know, that if the good man of the house had known at what hour the thief would come, this is the good man. And Yeshua referenced the good man when he told Peter and John to prepare the Passover. Also, the good man comes at the day of covering, or Yom Kaseh, which is, I believe, falsely mistranslated as full moon. It's actually the day of the covering, and if you look at the pictograph Hebrew, I think the first letter is a kaf, which is to cover, with the palm or something, which is, that's on atonement, guys, which is why I say Yom Kippur, which is atonement, Passover, and then Yom Kippur again, the third time at the end. He would have watched and not have his house suffered to be broken through. Be ye ready also, for the Son of Man cometh at an hour when ye think not. Again, we've been debating the beginning of the tribulation, 70th week, the mid-70th week, and the end of the 70th week for decades, centuries, and millennia. So, it appears that he's coming 3 times. Then Peter said unto him, Master, speakest thou this parable unto us, or even to all? And the master said, Who then is the faithful and wise servant, whom his Lord has made ruler over his household, to give them their portion of meat in due season? Blessed is that servant, whom his Lord, when he cometh, shall find so doing. Of a truth I say unto you, I will make him ruler over all that he hath. We're going to look at another account, okay? But I want to make sure that we establish that the good man is seen in Proverbs 7:20. He's gone on a long journey, and he comes on the day of covering, which is atonement, and also the good man we see in Passover. So Matthew 24:36-51. But of that day and hour knoweth no man. And in my next video, if I can get it out, I will suggest that this be Yom Kippur, because Yom Kippur goes over 2 days. It starts the evening of the 9th to the evening of the 10th. It's a 2-day event, not Yom Teruah. No, not the angels of heaven, but my Father only. But as the days of Noah were, so shall the coming of the Son of Man be. For as the days of Noah were before the flood, they were eating and drinking, celebrating holidays, marrying and giving in marriage, until the day that Noah entered into the ark, and knew not until the flood came, and took them all away. So also shall the coming of the Son of Man be. Then shall 2 be in the field, the one shall be taken and the other left. 2 women shall be grinding at the mill, one shall be taken and the other left. Watch therefore, for you know not what hour your master doth come. So tonight, when Yom Kippur starts here in Israel, people are still going to be at the mill and in the field if you go west, okay, because the sun has yet to set and all of these other things. But here, people will be sleeping. But know this, that if the good man of the house, again, Proverbs 7:19-20, had known in what watch, okay, multiple departures, possibly, question mark, the thief would come, he would have watched, and he would not have suffered his house to be broken up. Therefore, be ye also ready, for in such an hour ye think not the Son of Man cometh. Who then is a faithful and wise servant? This is singular. So my question is he speaking of the one coming in the spirit of Elijah, whom his master hath made ruler over his household, to give them meat to eat in due season, feeding the flock? Blessed is that servant, singular, whom his master, when he cometh, shall find so doing. So this servant looks like they're feeding the flock. Verily I say unto you, that he shall make him ruler over all his goods. But and if that evil servant shall say in his heart, my master delayeth his coming, and shall begin to smite his fellow servants, and to eat and drink with the drunken, the master of that servant shall come in a day when he looketh not for him, and an hour when he is not aware, and he shall cut him asunder and appoint his portion with the hypocrites. So the hypocrites are going to be those professing Jesus with no works, following, not keeping the commandments as he instructed his followers to do. Remember, Yeshua said, basically, to paraphrase, why do you call me master and not do what I say? So he instructed us to keep his commandments. There shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth. So the hypocrites are going to go where there's weeping and gnashing of teeth, and that's going to be the 70th week, I believe. Okay, and here we go in Mark 13. But of that day and hour knoweth no man, no, not the angels which are in heaven, neither the Son, but the Father. Take ye heed, watch and pray, for ye know not when the time is. For the Son of Man is a man taking a far journey. Again, this is the good man in Proverbs 7:19-20, who left his house and gave authority to his servants, plural. So not Luke 12, but Matthew 13, plural. Servants, plural here. And to every man his work. We all have works to do. And commanded the porter, which is singular again, to watch. And a porter is a gatekeeper to the temple. And remember, there's only one way into the millennial temple, into the eastern gate on the millennial temple, and that's through the Sabbath. Watch ye therefore, for ye know not when the master of the house cometh, at even, or at midnight, or at the cock crowing, or in the morning, lest coming suddenly he find you sleeping. And what I say unto you, I say unto all, watch. So we are all supposed to watch. And we are supposed to watch, I believe, on the day of covering, Yom Kippur. And we are supposed to watch on Passover. And I'm going to show you both of those coming up. So let's get back to the marriage consummation, okay? Because there's definitely a difference between a marriage consummation and the marriage supper, I believe. I think we just proved that because he returns from the marriage. Deuteronomy 12:13, and he shall put the raiment of her captivity from off her. Okay, this is speaking of a man who took a slave to be his wife. Okay, he has to shave her head, bald, cut her fingernails, and put raiment of captivity on her for 30 days, and then she'll remain in thine house and bewail her father and her mother a full month. So she's going to cry that she's taken captive, and after that you shall go in unto her and be her husband, and she shall be thy wife. So look at the order here in Deuteronomy, the instruction. When the man goes in unto her, he becomes her husband, and she shall be thy wife. That appears to be the order. A second witness of this would be found in Genesis 24:67. And Isaac brought her into his mother Sarah's tent and took Rebekah, and she became his wife. So the same order. All right, and he loved her, and Isaac was comforted after his mother's death. So Isaac took Rebekah. And that word take is probably, I looked it up, there's like 30 different definitions for this, but you can imagine what this is, all right? So the proper order appears to me to be betrothal, then the marriage consummation, then the marriage supper, okay? That's what it looks like. So how can one celebrate the marriage without first making it official? When and if the act of consummation makes it official in the Hebrew culture. Okay, I'm not talking about modern Hebrew culture. I'm not talking about tradition. I'm talking about ancient Hebrew culture. Okay? So no, I'm not trying to suggest anything perverted, but rather a deep level of non-sexual intimacy between man and Creator. So another part where we see a wedding here in the scriptures, it appears to be out of order. And Laban tricked the heel grabber Jacob. So was the wrong order part of the trick that he did? Having the supper first, getting Jacob overjoyous with possibly wine. You would have wine at a wedding, we know that, right? And snuck Leah in at night in the darkness, whom Jacob consummated. So let's take a look at the passage, but it appears that that's what happened here, okay? I'm not saying Jacob was drunk, but I'm just saying overjoyous with wine, you know, in this nostalgic moment, and unawares that his father-in-law was setting him up. So Genesis 29:21-30, and Jacob said unto Laban, give me my wife, for my days are fulfilled, that I may go in unto her. Okay, so here we see it again. Consummation. He wants his wife to go in unto her. And then rather than giving him his wife, and Laban gathered together all the men of the place and made a feast. So it looks like he made a feast, and it came to pass in the evening that he took Leah his daughter and brought her to him, and he went in unto her. And Laban gave unto his daughter Leah Zilpah his maid for a handmaid. And it came to pass that in the morning, okay, now in the morning, it was Leah. So Jacob had no idea that night that it was Leah. You know, he thought it was Rachel. So it looked like that's what happened here. They had the feast before the consummation, and it looks like Jacob was just caught up in the moment, and it was night, and he went to consummate the wedding. He'd worked 7 years for her, woke up in the morning, wow, couldn't believe it. Then he said, what is this that you have done to me? Did I not serve thee for Rachel? Wherefore thou hast beguiled me. So he definitely beguiled him. So Laban set him up, and he said, it must not be done so in our country to give the younger before the firstborn. Fulfill her week. So fulfill her week, and we will give thee this also for the service which thou shalt serve with me. Yet 7 other years. And Jacob did so and fulfilled her week, and he gave him Rachel his daughter to wife also. And Laban gave to Rachel his daughter Bilhah, his handmaid, to be her maid. And he went in also unto Rachel, and he loved Rachel more than Leah, and served with him yet those 7 other years. So we see, he went in unto her to consummate the marriage. So a marriage supper and a marriage consummation are 2 different things. And again, going back here, it says, and this is Passover, when he returns again, it looks like, he will return from the wedding. The wedding already happened here in this passage. So this is why I'm saying it looks like there are 2 departures. One on the day of covering, Yom Kippur, the other one on Passover. So, speaking of the wedding feast in Cana doesn't fit in the first month. There's not enough time to travel and make it from Capernaum to Jerusalem in time for the Passover Seder. So if there was a wedding at Cana on the 3rd day, that's all it gives us. It's the 3rd day. We don't know if it's the 3rd day of the week or the 3rd day of the month. It doesn't say. But we just know it's a 3rd day. So let's just leave it at that, 3rd day. And it's one before the Passover. So the Passover is in the first month of Abib, here on the 14th day. So the wedding would have been here, if it was in the first month, it would have been on the 6th day of the week. Then you have the Sabbath. Then it says they traveled to Capernaum, which is a 40-kilometer journey from Cana. So maybe they traveled 12.5 miles per day. It would have been, or 20 kilometers. It would have been taken 2 days to get there to Capernaum. They would have stayed at Capernaum 1 day. It said they stayed at Capernaum a few days. A few is more than 2. So let's just do 3. 1, 2, 3. So now, when they leave and depart Capernaum, they're not going to travel on the Sabbath. They have to get almost 170 kilometers journey, and they have to get there in 1 day, 2 day, 3 day, 4th day. But the 4th day, that's only 160 kilometers. If they're going 40 kilometers a day, that's double the distance here, which means that they wouldn't have made it more than likely in time to drive out the money changers and prepare for the Passover. So that means that I believe that this event, the wedding in Cana, had to happen in the 12th month. Okay, and so that means that the wedding in Cana happened in the 12th month. It just so happens that the 3rd day of the 12th month is always also the 3rd day of the week. And it turns out the wedding happened on the same day of the 2nd temple dedication. So here I mapped this out, I put it on here, and you go 3rd day of the month, turned out to be 3rd day of the week. I put a couple of question marks here, but it turns out this is the same day, the Memorial Day, when the 2nd temple was completed and dedicated, according to Ezra chapter 6, verses 15 to 18. So this had to have been the 3rd day. It was the 3rd day of the 12th month when this event happened. The wedding of Cana. That was the 2nd temple dedication it happened on. The 1st temple dedication, it was a 7-day festival that Solomon made. And it just so happens that the 3rd day of the 7-day temple dedication was on a Yom Kippur. And here I have it mapped out. I know that James Smith has done a lot of work regarding day that the heaven is opened. And so if this is going to be a type and fulfillment, maybe the temple in heaven is going to be opened on the 3rd day to memorialize the 1st temple dedication, just like Yeshua's first of turning water into wine on the 2nd Memorial Day of the 2nd temple dedication. So that's something that I just want to throw out there, and I think that it's interesting because, again, this is, I believe, Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur is the day of the covering, which is, I believe, a hidden name for the atonement, because that's what happens. And last slide that I have for you is, this is an estimate, okay, an estimate of a Yom Kippur start date scenario. I should have been using estimates. I believe that this is how it's going to lay out, and we can slide it like I said. But this is the estimate of the Yom Kippur start date scenario for Daniel's 70th week. Okay, so this timeline here, and this is on the Zadok Priest Dead Sea Scroll Enoch solar calendar. And I say estimate because it says, before she travailed, she brought forth. Before her pain came, she was delivered of a man-child. So the birth could precede the 70th week by a couple of days, maybe a few days. And the 70th week might start on Sukkot. I'll be putting out another video on that, and I'll be redoing this slide to show the shift. Okay, but what we have here is Yom Kippur start date. It would start basically on the September 28th, and that's when the 70th week would start. The two witnesses question mark would start. The wedding consummation would start. Maybe the wars start for the beginning of sorrows right here. Then what happens is, if you go 42 months or 3.5 years or 1,260 days, not including the 4 days of remembrance that happen a year, not accounting the day of the great sign in heaven, which is the spring equinox that comes up where the sun casts a shadow on the earth, that means that the death of the two witnesses would happen on the 10th day of the first month, probably at dawn sometime, which actually would be like March 31st. And that's in the blue here. And that same day, March 30th to 31st, because the day starts at sunrise, okay, March 31st is when the Great Tribulation would begin. The abomination of desolation in Jerusalem would happen. There would be the flight into the wilderness. The mark of the beast would start to be enforced. And it's the 11th day of the first month. Okay, but now we know the death of the two witnesses, they're on the ground 3.5 days. So what you do is you count 3.5 days, 1, 2, 3.5, and it just happens to be on this perfect calendar. Not saying that this scenario is perfect, because it could slide a couple of days, but on this perfect calendar, that means that 3.5 days later, from the dawn of the 10th day, count 3.5 days later, it brings you to sunset evening of the 14th day of the first month, which is when the Passover Seder would happen. So does the resurrection, does the come up here resurrection rapture happen when the two witnesses resurrect? And is that the wedding supper? So we have the wedding consummation here, okay, and then we have the wedding supper here, all right? And then that would mean that the great and dreadful day of Yahweh would be the 10th day of the 7th month, Yom Kippur, September 28th, 2025. Now the second scenario, if it starts on Sukkot, in Isaiah 66, before she travailed, she brought forth. Before her pain came, she was delivered of a man-child. So the birth could precede the 70th week by a few days. So maybe this event happens on Yom Kippur, and then on the first day of Sukkot, could be the event. And now if the first day of the Sukkot is the event, that means the two witnesses would die on Passover, and the flight into the wilderness of the 144,000 virgin Israelite men would be on Passover. And then also the resurrection would be 3.5 days later. Resurrecting on the Sabbath during unleavened bread in the morning, which is the same day Yeshua resurrected, but he resurrected, I believe, at sunset, or right before sunset, during the festival of unleavened bread. And that means that the end of everything would happen. He would set up his kingdom, okay, on Sukkot. So that's kind of interesting to consider as well. So we're going to keep watching, because that's what we're doing. We're not date setting, we're date watching, and we're watching through the scriptures. So brothers and sisters out there who've been on this journey with me, as iron sharpened iron, I've been so blessed by all of our YouTube fellowship that we've had in the comment sections. Very encouraged, and just continue to keep watching. I love you, brothers and sisters of Yeshua HaMashiach, that have the testimony of Yeshua HaMashiach and keep the commandments of Elohim. I'm signing off for Jerusalem. I'll be doing my video on Yom Kippur coming up. And remember, the fast affliction of your soul starts at sunset. Okay? Sunset to sunset, starting on the 9th, the sunset on the 10th. Signing off from Jerusalem, and shalom.